Atrahasis, Tablet 1, page 67. They called the goddess the midwife, shrewd Mammy, saying, "You are the womb goddess. Give rise to the species of man. Give rise to a primitive human, to perform the labor of gods. Let him be the one to bear the yoke, who does Enlil's work, so that man will be the one who performs the labor of gods." Nintu raised her voice to be heard, speaking to the high gods. "It is not best that I fashion him. This is better done by Enki, for it is by his efforts that things are made free from error. But if he provides me with clay, I will certainly carry it out." Enki raised his voice to be heard, speaking to the high gods. "Know that on the 1st, 7th, and 15th of the month I will conduct a water purification, and one god will be slain. Thus the gods will be cleansed through these holy ablutions. Then Nintu will combine the clay with his flesh and blood, so that a being, divine and mortal, will come from the clay. Then we will hear the heartbeat, rhythms from henceforth. Let the spirit arise into being from out of the divine flesh. But let her relate to man while he is alive of his condition, so they will never forget that the spirit is eternally made." And all gathered in the assemblage gave their affirmation. Of the holy Anunnaki, who were the determiners of destiny, then it was on the 1st, 7th, and 15th of the month that he conducted a water purification through immersion. The wise god Iluwela was chosen to be slain at the Congress. Nintu combined together the clay with his flesh and blood, so that they heard the heartbeat rhythms from henceforth, and the spirit arose into being from out of the divine flesh. Nintu related to man, while he was alive, of his condition, so they would never forget that the spirit is eternally made. Then after having done this, she combined together the clay. Then she convened the high gods, both Anunnaki and Igigi, and she caused her spittle to dribble onto the heap of clay. Then Mammy raised her voice, speaking to the high gods. "I have done precisely the task that was given to me to do, and you have slain a god altogether along with his mind. Now I have brought you release from your tiresome task, and have caused your burdens to be shifted onto mankind. While you have given humanity the capacity for speaking, thus I have released the bonds and brought you freedom." Hearing every word spoken with relief, they kissed her feet. "Until now we have referred to you by the name of Mammy, but henceforth you shall be called Mistress of all the gods." Then astute Enki and wise Mammy went to the abode of fate. There the womb goddess had already gathered together, and there he stomped upon the clay pile while she stood by. So she chanted the spells Enki, who was there, asked her to. When she had finished, she pulled off 14 bits of clay, setting out 7 bits on her right and 7 bits on her left. And midway between the columns she set there a mud brick. And then she slit open a stiff reed and severed the umbilical. Then called over the clever and worldly womb goddess. Here, 7 and 7 were 7 males and 7 females, for the womb goddess were the determiners of destiny. So she covered each pair. Enki covered them as she looked. And Mammy set forth the following customs for the people. Within the dwelling of the woman, who is the one bearing, then shall the mud brick be placed there for 7 full days. Then there will be a tribute to Belet Ili, the sagacious Mammy, and joy in the midwife's heart within the new mother's home. After bearing her baby, then the mother will separate herself. Thus the man will be paired with the girl, who is yet a virgin. Only after maturing, when her bosom has fully developed, and when the young man's beard is seen upon his cheek, within the gardens and paths will she find her husband. And the womb goddess came together there with Nintu, and they counted every one of the months as they went by, assigning the 10th month to be the designated duration. Then after 1 full term, upon arrival of the 10th month, she would deftly manage a measure and open the womb, and her expression would be one of joy and satisfaction. And she would drape her head and take the role of midwife. She would then secure her belt and speak aloud a blessing, then spread flour into a pitcher and set out a mud brick. I was the one who created, my hands the ones which made. The midwife will be joyous in the nursing priestess's house. Anywhere a woman gives birth and the mother is separated, then shall a mud brick be placed for fully 9 days. And the womb goddess Nintu shall receive her due honors. Then she shall utter the name of their undying mother, Mammy, and likewise she shall speak the name of the womb goddess, and spread out a cloth of linen when the house bed is made. The wife and the husband will select each other for partners, and Ishtar will be gladdened by the wedding of man and wife, where it will take place within the dwelling of the father-in-law, and there shall be celebrations which will last for fully 9 days, where they will call upon Princess Ishtar by the name Ishara. Then, on the 15th day, as has been determined by destiny, she will call the bride and the groom together to the bridal bed. The man and wife will then live together, bound to one another, and shall carry out the work for their existence, acting in virtue, never straying from the honorable, bringing the gifts of gods, to live according to the ways established for them by the gods, to live free from adulterous acts or satisfying homosexuality, to live free from shameful acts or what brings hands to guilt. Do not attain your wealth unduly, but gain by upright means. Be satisfied with your own things and do not take from others. Do not engage in deceit, but declare all truthfully and honestly. Above all, honor the gods, and after them honor your parents. Perform labor so you can manage through your own efforts. Because the one who is idle makes his livelihood from stealing. Learning a skill gives a man his living. The slothful go hungry. Do not find yourself eating what another man has left behind. Rather obtain your food properly from the gift of your labors. But if he fails to acquire a skill, in its place he must ply the hoe. There is no shortage of work for one who is agreeable to labor. Become a marine merchant if wishing to sail. The seas are vast. If you prefer to plow cultivatable land, the countryside is wide. Nothing worthwhile comes without toil, for men or for gods. Likewise, through work one enlarges his own righteousness. When ants leave their nests, unseen deep within the earth, driven by the requirement that they provender themselves, when the field has filled the threshing floor with its bounty, after reaping, they carry loads of the newly threshed grain. Be it wheat or barley, one hauler follows behind the other. It is from summer's harvest that they stock up winter's food. Not given to rest, these minute ones do a fair share of labor, while too the bee works through the air, toiling tirelessly, be it within the cleft of an empty rock or amongst reed beds, or be it within an old hollow oak tree. There inside their nests, swarming in their combs of innumerable cells, making wax. Thus man will seek his work and continue until the twilight. Prepare the home for his arrival, when his day's work is done. The father's son learns this from him, remaining at his side. The gods went out to look upon the task being done nearby. They remained there a while, and then went to the god Enlil, and he gathered up the things which were required to forge. He then saw the father and his son and walked up to them. Enlil showed them the way to smelt iron and to work steel, and they took up the metal implements from the ash pile. From these they produced new picks and spades to utilize, to dig long channels to provide food and please the gods. And the water fed the lands well. Food became abundant. People harvested their fields of grain, made bread, and ate. They performed then, for the first time, the many sacrifices. So they prepared a flour offering to the gods, their patrons, and they prepared a food offering to the gods, their patrons. They prepared a present offering to the gods, their patrons. They prepared a show offering for the gods, their patrons. They prepared a smoke offering to the gods, their patrons. They prepared a disperse offering to the gods, their patrons. They prepared an incense offering to the gods, their patrons. In addition to this, they made their daily sacrifices to the gods, and the gods enjoyed their offerings and were contented. But men gathered, going about their business in the towns. They ate their bread and drank their beer and had offspring, and their numbers became more and more, greater by far. 600 years, not even 600 years, went by. The inhabited lands sprawled, and the people grew plentiful. And the inhabited lands raised a howl like a bellowing bull. But the god was annoyed by all the noise that they made. Enlil had to put up with all of their loud clamor and clatter. Enlil raised his voice to be heard, speaking to the high gods. The noise which is made by men has become too great. All of this clamor and clutter has kept me from my sleep. Therefore, command an outbreak of the shivering disease. And thus the divine Namtara was summoned by the gods. Then the divine Namtara unleashed the shivering disease, and all of the people were beset by the plague outbreak. There was one man among them who was named Atrahasis, and he heeded diligently the words spoken by his god Enki. He often communed with his god, receiving the god's reply. Atrahasis raised his voice to be heard, speaking to his lord. How long are we going to be beset by this terrible disease? Is it their intention that we bear this syndrome for all time? Enki raised his voice to be heard, speaking to his servant. Bring together the elders, gather to you the men of rank, so as to instigate a rebellion within your own community. Send out messengers to announce this within every district, and cause them to raise a loud cry throughout all the lands, that you no longer will pay fitting homage to your gods, that you no longer beseech the favor of your goddess, but rather find your way to the door of the god Namtara. Present to him a loaf of baked bread, leaving him a flour offering, and let him feel his own shame upon receiving these gifts, so that he might remove from you his discredited hand. Atrahasis did as he was told, bringing the elders to his door, and he raised his voice to be heard, speaking to the elders. I have brought together the elders and the men of rank, so as to instigate a rebellion within our own community. Send out messengers to announce this within every district, and cause them to raise a loud cry throughout all lands, that you no longer will pay fitting homage to your gods, that you no longer beseech the favor of your goddess, but rather find your way to the door of the god Namtara. Present him a loaf of baked bread, leave a flour offering, and let him feel his own shame upon receiving these gifts, that he might remove from off of us his discredited hand. And the elders paid heed to his prudently spoken advice. Thus they built a temple in the city dedicated to Namtara, sent out messengers to announce this within every district, and caused them to raise a loud cry throughout all lands. So they no longer would pay fitting homage to their gods, so they no longer beseeched the favor of their goddess, but rather found their way to the door of the god Namtara, presented him a loaf of baked bread, left a flour offering, such that he himself felt shame upon receiving these gifts, so that he removed from off of them his discredited hand, and the shivering disease was no longer a menace to them. Then after this, the gods received again their daily offerings, though their numbers were no less, but became even greater, while the racket, their clamor and clatter, grew ever louder. Peace and blessings to you all.